Graders, welcome back to our study of the solar system and beyond. We are in lesson 9, space exploration. A couple things for you to get real quick. Vocabulary words are always good to have ahead of time before we start reading. Module, observatory, probes, reusable, spacecraft, space shuttle, and triumph. So what have we already learned about Nicholas Copernicus in the previous lesson? Well, we know he was a Polish astronomer, clergyman. He said the Earth moved in space, proposed the heliocentric idea that the sun, not the Earth, was the center of the solar system. He opposed the geocentric view that said the Earth was the center. He came to these conclusions based on lots of study. Now, we also learned about the telescopes, galaxies moving farther away, things that we've learned using telescopes. Stars are different colors, different shapes of galaxies, all of that. A couple things about telescopes that you need to remember, and also space exploration. Telescopes are only one way that astronomers learn about the universe. Another way is through space exploration. Space exploration also depends on the astronauts and various kinds of spacecraft to explore space in different ways. The word spacecraft is both singular and plural form used to describe vessels that are sent into space. There can be one spacecraft or many spacecraft. The definition of the word astronaut is a person who is trained for spaceflight. Break apart the word astronaut. Identify the word part. Astro is star. We've talked about that before. So stars and constellations. You hear the word navigate, not means having to do with navigation. So navigating through the stars. An astronaut is literally a space navigator. Just think. Copernicus, with the help of other scientists before and after him, changed our understandings of astronomy when he discovered that the universe is not geocentric. Copernicus opened our eyes and minds to a whole different way of thinking about the universe. How we're just a handful of people able to come up with an idea that changed the whole world. It's quite simple, really. Copernicus began by studying something he was really interested in, the night sky. So it's always good to study what you're interested in. It tends to help you lead to even more discoveries. His interest led him to make careful observations, to ask questions, to work hard, to study, to think logically, to come up with new answers and to build upon the work of other scientists before him. His willingness to ask questions, even when he had to stand alone with his ideas, led Copernicus to make an important scientific discovery. Our solar system is heliocentric or sun-centered. All of science is based upon careful observations of the world and a willingness to ask questions about it. Asking questions allows us to come up with new ideas, and new ideas lead to a better understanding of how the world works. That's what the process of science is all about. So whenever you observe the world around you and ask questions about what you see, you should be proud of yourself because you are thinking like a scientist. This is why when we're doing our social studies readers or when you're reading anything, I always ask you to ask the 5 questions: who, what, where, why, and when, and sometimes how. But you have to ask those W's because it helps you to ask questions about what you're reading, as well as science. Same thing is true with reading. You learn comprehension skills using those questions. Not too many years after Copernicus died, the telescope was invented. As you heard in the previous read aloud, Galileo was one of the first astronomers to build and use a telescope. Very soon, many astronomers began using telescopes to take a closer look at the stars. This gave them new information, so astronomers were able to learn even more about the universe and gather more evidence that supported Copernicus's heliocentric theory. As you heard earlier, astronomers discovered the planet Neptune fewer than 200 years ago. In 1846, when they were able to see it with a more powerful telescope, astronomers continued building different types of more powerful telescopes, which led to even better understanding of space and more questions about it too. Discovering more objects similar to the size of Pluto led scientists to ask again, how should Pluto be classified? With more information available, astronomers came up with a brand new answer to that question. Today, telescopes that astronomers use are usually located in areas far away from cities. Where there are cities, there is a lot of light. Where there is a lot of light on Earth, it is harder to see the light of the stars. Light made by humans that hinders or blocks our view of the stars is called light pollution. Besides building telescopes far away from light pollution, astronomers also like to build telescopes on high mountains. You might think it's so astronomers can get closer to the stars, but it's actually so they can just get away from all the light pollution. An observatory is building designed to an observatory is a building designed to especially for observing the stars, planets, and other space objects. All right. Placing an observatory high on a mountain allows astronomers to get above the Earth's atmosphere as far above as possible. And as the Earth's atmosphere thins out in higher places, astronomers can see more clearly look at the light of the stars. A more powerful telescope was built for the Lowell Observatory in Arizona for the purpose of finding Pluto. Astronomers thought Pluto existed before they ever saw it. There appeared to be something in space beyond Uranus and Neptune that was exerting a strong gravitational pull on these planets. Astronomers searched for 25 years before they finally discovered Pluto. But there's another way the scientists are now able to place telescopes even higher than the highest mountain. Telescopes are launched into space. That's right. Scientists now use rockets to escape Earth's surface gravity. The power of rockets enables spacecraft to launch telescopes into space. Once beyond Earth's atmosphere, the telescopes can study the universe more closely and clearly than ever before. Some spacecraft are held in orbit around Earth by its gravity. Other spacecraft have ventured beyond the reach of Earth's gravity to explore other parts of the solar system. Telescopes and cameras aboard the space probes Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have spent the last 35 years gathering information about Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the outermost reaches of our solar system. Telescopes that are launched into space are literally out of this world, and they are able to take pictures of the universe that also are out of this world. The Hubble Space Telescope is one of the most famous telescopes ever to be launched into space. It was carried into orbit by the Space Shuttle in 1990, and it now orbits 350 miles above the surface of the Earth. Because there is very little light pollution in orbit, because Earth's atmosphere does not get in the way and cause distortion, this powerful telescope helps scientists see deeper into the universe than ever before. The Hubble Space Telescope has provided scientists with new information and fantastic pictures of our solar system, distant stars, faraway galaxies, and other celestial bodies and occurrences. Space shuttles are manned, winged spacecrafts that carry supplies, astronauts, and equipment into space, then return to Earth to be used again. The last NASA space shuttle to fly was retired in 2011. A lot has happened since then. There's probably some more stuff coming from NASA. We'll have to see. This is an image of distant galaxies. This is pretty neat. This is actually taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. You can see the different galaxies, some spiral, some irregular, way out there. It's pretty neat. New discoveries in science, such as the telescope, also lead to new questions. For most of human history, many of the questions and theories people had about space came from simply gazing up at the night sky. People could look up at the moon and the planets and stars, but these celestial bodies were completely beyond reach. Once humans invented a way to fly in airplanes, which was only a little more than 100 years ago, the question soon became, can we fly beyond Earth's atmosphere, all the way into space? The exciting answer to that question was a loud yes. In 1957, a group of countries, then called the Soviet Union, which included Russia, sent the first satellite made by humans into space. The satellite was called Sputnik 1, and it was an aluminum sphere that was only about the size of a beach ball. This small artificial satellite began a whole new revolution in space exploration. Can you guess what scientists' next question was? It was this. If we can send a satellite into space, can we also send a living being into space? A month later, Russia sent a dog named Laika into space. Laika was the first living being ever to go to space. After Laika's mission, several more dogs were successfully sent into space. Can you guess what the question was? Right. If we can send a dog into space, can we send a human into space? In 1961, the Soviets again answered this question with a resounding enthusiastic yes. The first human being to go into space was Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin aboard the spacecraft Vostok 1. Cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin orbited the globe in Vostok 1 for 108 minutes before returning to Earth. Cosmonaut is the Russian word for astronaut. If he started at 12 o'clock noon, 108 minutes later would have been 1:48 or 12 minutes before 2. So just under 2 hours of space travel. This is, of course, the first space dog in space. A couple pictures of their celebration of the space dogs. And here's our astronauts: Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin. With this new triumph or accomplishment, scientists asked a new question. If we can send a human being into space, can we also send one to land on the moon? What do you think the answer was? A triumphant yes. In 1969, the United States sent 3 astronauts into space: Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. These astronauts traveled to the moon in a spacecraft called Apollo 11, which had 3 sections. The lunar module or section of the Apollo 11 was named Eagle. That's why you hear the phrase, the Eagle has landed. It landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin aboard. Meanwhile, astronaut Michael Collins orbited the moon in Apollo 11 command module called the Columbia. The third service module provided power, oxygen, and water. So all that together. There's a really neat video on YouTube about the actual space landing, how it looked, the visual, black and white back then, of course, and it's great. They actually took a lot of stuff to space. And other occurrences they had, they took golf clubs to space and actually shot a ball off. There was a microfilm version of the New King James Bible that they left on the moon. The American flag, of course. So many really neat things. Anyway, these are some of the iconic photos that you will see about the first landing on the moon. There's the Apollo 11 module, service module, command module, lunar module. You can get models of these to play with at home. Pretty cool. I have one somewhere. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first human being ever to walk on the moon. Soon after his feet, which were inside a spacesuit, touched the surface, Neil Armstrong spoke these famous words: "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Soon after Armstrong said these famous words, Buzz Aldrin joined him to walk on the surface, where they bounced and hopped to get around because of the moon's low gravity. The astronauts had to plan their movements 6 or 7 steps ahead because movement on the moon is different from movement on Earth. They also discovered that the fine moon soil was quite slippery. Together, Armstrong and Aldrin collected about 48 pounds of moon rocks and brought them back to Earth to be studied. They took many photographs and performed experiments to learn about the moon. Here's Aldrin on the moon, Armstrong in his reflection. You kind of see that? It's pretty neat. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin rejoined Michael Collins, the pilot, aboard Apollo 11's Columbia, where they lived while in space, and they all returned safely to Earth. Thanks to Earth's gravity, the Columbia came back through the Earth's atmosphere and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. There are a lot of pictures of the Columbia in magazines and on the internet. Someday, if you ever visit Washington, D.C., you can see the Columbia at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, which I've been there. It's really awesome. If you ever go to the Washington, D.C. Air and Space Museum, pretty neat to see that. In the past, the spacecraft like Apollo 11 were only able to fly into space and be back one time. They were not reusable. But with advances in technology, reusable spacecraft have been developed. Reusing the space shuttle has saved time, money, and valuable resources. As scientists continue to explore space in the future, we will continue to get a better understanding of space and the universe. And as we continue to learn more, you can be sure there'll be many more questions to be asked. Maybe you'll be asking them, and maybe you'll be answering them. So we're not going to go through all of these. These are just questions for you to review for yourself. If you want to quiz yourself to see how much you remember. Identifying the spacecraft and the space tools. There are a lot of really neat websites you can go to. Definitely check out NASA. They've got all sorts of things for you to see. It's a whole kid area for you to learn about. And there will be questions on the Canvas for you to answer about space travel and space exploration. What you would do if you could do space exploration. Or maybe you'll work on the engineering side and be like the people that help get the astronauts into space, do the math to help make sure their space travel goes well, like Apollo 13, those kinds of things. You got to make sure that the astronauts are getting what they need to get done. All right, that'll be it for today. If you want to spend some time working on this part of working on a biography, this is not part of the assignment, but sometime parents can look at this if you're listening and work with your students on helping their biography skills. Anyway, and writing sentences. Okay, that's it for this lesson. I will see you in the next one. Thank you.